everyone, and welcome to the Bipartisan Policy Center. Sorry we're getting a little bit of a late start on this session today, as I'm sure many of you appreciate Senator Manchin is in a little bit of demand these days. But I'm Sasha Mackler, and I lead the Energy Project here at the BPC, and we are really excited about the conversation we have lined up for you all today, focused on one of our favorite legislators and exploring a topic that is near and dear to the BPC and to so many of our viewers, the outlook for energy and climate policy this Congress. Before I turn things over to my colleague, Jason Grumet, BPC founder and president, I would just like to take a moment to thank and congratulate Senator Manchin and all of his colleagues on Capitol Hill on the successful passage of an enormously impactful bipartisan energy bill last Congress. We all truly appreciate your stubborn commitment to advancing energy legislation, as well as your ability to effectively work across the aisle with Senator Murkowski and other Republicans. The recent energy bill lays out a really important foundation for the clean energy transition, but more work lies ahead on innovation, tax policy, infrastructure, carbon management, farm and forest solutions, and other areas to jumpstart the American economy and create millions of new jobs. BPC has initiatives underway on each of these topics, and we look forward to working together with you to advance them. With that, I'll turn things over to Jason, my colleague, who will lead our conversation with Senator Manchin today. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you, Sasha. Senator, it is great to see you. We got a lot to talk about. So let me just kind of set it up with the basic premise. Fundamentally restructuring the American economy is going to require durable policy. Durable policy is going to require some broad-based bipartisan support. And bipartisan leadership equals Joe Manchin. So no pressure, my friend, but we got a lot riding on you right now.
I don't feel no pressure.
Yeah, I know. Sasha called you stubborn, and I think that's fair. I had a lot of questions. We've done this before. I know that I might only get 3 or 4 out there. So let me just tell you where I want to go with this. I want to start out talking just big picture, kind of politics of the possible. I want to talk about a couple of the big legislative vehicles, stimulus, infrastructure.
Sure.
And then I really want to talk about this question about transition. I think that you have made it compellingly clear for the last decade that West Virginia is not going to be left out of the future of the American economy. And so I want to spend a little time there. But so just to kick it off, politics of the possible, we believe, the fierce urgency of pragmatism. Sasha mentioned the important legislation, and I'll call it climate legislation, right? It was energy, but it was actual bipartisan climate legislation that you and Senator Murkowski passed. So just talk a little bit about the process. What enabled you to get that done? What does that mean in terms of a capacity for coalitions going forwards? And maybe, where are there still some red lines?
Jason, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you all for the support you give us. Because without y'all's support, a lot of our senators wouldn't have the backing and the comfort level that they would to do. I tell people you have to get out of your comfort zone, and by getting out of your comfort zone, that means you've got to look and say, okay, well, I've always been on this side of this issue. I've never really supported this side of this issue. But I said, first of all, let's get a set of facts we agree to. Once we get facts, then we can usually defend ourselves. But you all giving us and helping us, making sure that we have those baselines we can work off of has been wonderful. But with the whole secret for what we were able to do in the last Congress, myself and Lisa, her being chairman, me being ranking member, Jason, was basically this. We're friends. We like each other. We know each other. We made sure that our staffs met with each other. We didn't let anybody get in a silo to where this group's working against this group on this side or this side. We basically would take an issue and we said, hey, there's no one going to be comfortable thinking a senator from Alaska and a senator from West Virginia is in charge of energy and they're going to protect the climate. And I could understand that. Because they just didn't know who we were. So the first thing we did, Jason, was a climate conference. Now, let me tell you, the first thing we did yesterday, Wednesday, was a climate baseline. I want to say, let's find out where we've been for the last 15 years where we were in 2005, where we are today. How do we get there? Do we go forward or do we go backwards? Did we not accelerate it enough? Are we on track to be carbon neutral 2050? I don't know. Let's look and see. Where's the rest of the world? It's called global climate. It's not West Virginia climate, Alaska climate, or North American climate. So we need to be cognizant of that. So we had all of our staffs moving in the same direction. So when we had the Great American Outdoors Act, we had the energy bill, things that haven't been done for years. 50 years on the Great American Outdoors with LWCF, Land Water Conservation Fund. That's the greatest environmental thing that you can buy, and climate too. And then you put that on top of the energy bill we passed, but we still have a lot to do. So John Parasso and I know each other. We're friends, but we need to build more of that relationship. Lisa and I go back a long way. So with John, I'm building it. We want our staffs to start working more and more together. I said, there's no surprises. We're all on the same side. We're not against you, and neither should you be against us. So once we get staffs blending, and John and I, they know that the members are friends and we talk, things can happen. When you have people philosophically and ideologically in two different worlds, and they put them together on a committee, that committee usually is not very productive. And we've had the most production of anybody in the last Congress. That's how it works.
The striking idea that trust and even a little bit of affection helps people solve tough problems, I think, is something that, well, it seems obvious in every other aspect of society, doesn't get enough attention in the Congress.
Jason, it's no different than each one of you all and your organization and everybody that's watching. It's building relationships, and you have to build relationships on trust. So it can't be that I'm your friend, but boy, if I get a chance to get the political one-upsmanship on you, I'm going to take it and say, Jason, you should understand that. You're a Democrat or Republican, and I'm a Democrat, but whatever we are, we're different. And you should understand that I've got to take that political advantage. That's just the way the game's played. No, I'm not playing games. I don't like that game. Never did like that game. So as far as I'm concerned, I had Lisa's back. Lisa had my back. And man, does that help.
All right. So let's talk about the tough stuff you got to work on.
Yeah.
The bill you passed really focused on investment and innovation. And I think it's fair to say that the entire climate solutions debate has shifted a lot in the last 18 months from carbon pricing, taxes, caps, towards this focus on innovation for some and maybe regulation for others. And I think for a bunch of years, people were saying hey, when's Manchin going to catch up with the climate debate? And I think it's now hey, when's the climate debate going to catch up with Manchin? And so the question I have for you is, how do you think about the combination of those issues? The need to invest in technology, but the fact that technology doesn't scale itself, right? At some point, there's going to have to be something to really push it into the system.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that debate has shifted a little bit, and how do you see it going forwards?
But let's put everything in perspective. First of all, for all of us to be able to move forward, we have to be in the same mindset. Do you believe the United States of America should be energy independent? Or do everything possible to stay energy independent? Because right now we are. Okay? Some people might not care about that. That's a hard conversation to have. Some people might say absolutely, because for us to be the superpower of the world, for us to have the economy we have and the opportunities we have to be self-reliant. Okay? We saw what happened back in the 70s. I'm old enough to remember waiting in line to get gasoline. So we know what can happen when we put all of our eggs in somebody else's basket. And we don't want that to ever happen. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean you throw caution to the wind. So I've said this. I believe that you cannot move yourself or the environment to a cleaner environment by elimination. I believe you do it by innovation. And what you do is you have to have innovation that creates the technology, whether it's going to be hydrogen, further advancing wind and solar and renewables, and using the fossil fuels that are going to be used around the world for some time in the cleanest fashion humanly possible. Create a whole nother economy, a whole nother manufacturing base that we could in America, and then use the trading policy of the strongest market that everybody wants to be in. They want to sell in the United States market. And we'll give them caveats if they use the technology that we've developed and proven under commercial load that works, reduces your emissions, and it's affordable and reliable and dependable. Why can't it's so simple if we just look at it that way? But I got people that says, don't ever use any more fossil, keep it in the ground. You might
So
succeed in parts of America. It's not going to succeed in the world. There's more coal demand. Look what India, they've increased. Look at the amount of coal, even though the percentage in China has gone down. Look at the volume they're using, and look at the plants they're building.
So we are with you that, innovation is going to have to be the fundamental driver domestically, globally. I had a conversation with you, which I'm sure you forgot, but it stuck with me. It was a lot, maybe 7-8 years ago. I was still pushing on carbon pricing, and you basically said, and I think you actually kind of finger in the chest said, look, let me get this straight. You want me to go back to West Virginia and tell, my voters, hey, I'm going to raise prices on a bunch of stuff. I'm going to knock a bunch of you out of jobs, but trust me, the global economy is going to invent technologies. And you pretty much said, like, that's not going to happen. And I heard you. So I want to ask you, though, with this technology push, 2 ifs. If we can really demonstrate, as you just suggested, kind of commercial scale technologies that enable that kind of all of the above, fuel culture to be part of the solution. And if it seems like it's just not moving fast enough, do you think the debate then shifts? In other words, if we put the technology as the engine and the pricing as the caboose, do you think that there might be a different view on those issues, several years ago?
I mean, for conversation standpoint, I said back in the 80s, I guess there was a pricing on pollution. We didn't call it carbon pricing. It was a pollution pricing. We didn't want to have SOx and NOx and everything that we knew that we could contain, and particulates. So as you look around the world that still have a lack of technology, even though we've developed some with scrubbers and low NOx boilers and baghouses for mercury, they're still killing people and dying with particulates, which we know that can be eliminated. And we can do it with CO2 also.
I mean, that's the right example. In the right context, when you have the technology proven, then those systems to speed it up, I think. I share your sense.
But what they're saying, they didn't call it, we weren't penalizing. We're going to tax you. When you say the word tax, it's a penalty. Okay?
So let me just drill down on that, right?
Well, it's climate cleaning. You want climate cleaning.
The number 50 is coming up a lot.
Cleaning. Yeah. So the only thing I say, let me just throw this at you, Jay. Tell me what you all think about this. Yeah. Okay. Paris Climate Accord. We've been in, we've been out, now we're back in, right? Mm-hmm. The only problems I had on Paris Climate was this. Everybody should be playing all the same hymnal or singing all the same hymnal. How come some countries got this? And it was all self-regulated. There's no, you want to do something globally? Put some pricing on the globe. You want to say you're into Paris? Then here's your penalty. Here's your carrot and stick. Try this one on. Let's see if you're really doing it. Yeah. Well, these kinds of things. But don't penalize. Don't shoot me in the foot and make me tell you'll like it, do it.
So I want to ask you a question that I think is important, and I think it's maybe almost rhetorical. 50 is a big number these days. We're talking about reconciliation. There were conversations about getting rid of the filibuster. Forget about the process. Are there 50 votes in the U.S. Senate for any kind of aggressive carbon pricing, in the next couple of years? I mean, is that a viable conversation?
Right now, no. They want to have a conversation how we improve our climate and do it in a most responsible way. Yeah, they'd have me in a heartbeat. They want to talk about this as a penalty. Forget it. As long as I'm here and there's 50 votes and it takes 51 to pass it.
All right, so let's talk about where we both, I think, see some possibility. Interested in your views, both on stimulus, to what extent you think there can and should be a clean energy investment there. And then I want to talk about infrastructure, which is it's the best idea that never happens, but maybe we're going to change that. Where do you see energy stimulus?
Well, the whole infrastructure energy, we put $35 billion on the last bill into research. We're putting our money where our mouth is because we want it to go. And we want people. We have 48C tax credit. I'm working right now to reinvest. Here's what you all have to understand. People that basically have done the heavy lifting for the last century comes from areas that did all the heavy lifting, the mining, the drilling, producing the energy this country needed to defend itself in every war, to build the industrial might, to lift the lower class up to the middle class. It's because of the energy independence and the hard work they've done. And now all of a sudden, If you go back to places like West Virginia, they'll tell you they feel like the returning Vietnam veteran. We took our orders, did everything you needed, and now we're not good enough, we're not clean enough, we're not green enough, and we're not smart enough. I'm sorry, but by God, you're not going to leave me behind. I'm part of this group. You're going to take me with you.
Let's go. I'll come back to it. I want to go right
the 50
there.
Group, let me just tell you this. The 50 group you're talking about, 50, so you want to know, I'm not going to bust a filibuster. If they think they want to jam things down people's throat, no. There's a process. If we can't get 1 or 2 or 3 Republicans to vote with things that we should be doing in a bipartisan, now we need 10, I'm not going down that path and destroy this place. I'm not going to let the Byrd rule be decimated. I'm not. And it's explained to me this way. Bob Byrd says, Joe, why do you think Rhode Island has 2 senators in California? What do you think our founding fathers were thinking of when everything was equal like that in one body, the most unusual body in the whole world, the United States Senate? Why do you think we have a filibuster so the minority has input? And why do you think there's a Byrd rule called after me? Because I knew how they try to circumvent and go around and destroy it. We're not going to do any of that.
All right. So let's talk about, look, where we are. I mean, we believe climate policy requires trillions of dollars of investment. It's going to take decades to do it. And if people believe the policy switching back and forth every 2 years is just not going to work. So we are all about thinking with you about what makes it durable. You talked about the 48C tax credit. And I really want to focus on this issue around, some people, I don't like the words just transition. There's not a good name for it, but this, as you said in the newspaper, by God, we're not going to take it. We're not going to be left behind. The economy is already accelerating in ways that have been devastating to the Appalachian region. Right. But so let's talk about the solutions. And I just want to share with you that when I've had this conversation, I was talking to one of my friends at the mine workers, and he basically said, look, all this stuff, and he used a different word for stuff, you're basically offering to pay for our funerals. That the suggestions that have been made about just transition tend to feel patronizing or somehow disconnected from the reality on the ground. You helped us with Senators Tillis and Warner and Perdue. We worked on an Appalachia study together, which looked much more broadly. You led on energy, Tillis, I think, led on healthcare, Mark Warner on entrepreneurship, Perdue on education. Do we have to broaden this discussion? Is the solution just green jobs, or is it really fundamentally thinking about the economic needs of the region?
Well, transition's happening. I mean, my goodness. I mean, the United States in just one decade, 10 years, we depended on coal-fired utilities for energy, 40 to 45%. We're down to 20. The metrics, no matter what Donald Trump says, we're going to bring all the coal jobs back. We lost more coal jobs under Donald Trump than we had previously. Transition, markets, the desires, people, what they want, consumers drive our markets. It's not the federal government, so you're going to get it whether you like it or not. The people are demanding different things. The only thing I have said, use your policies. Follow the money, Jason. If the country is going to give you tax credits, Congress votes for tax credits and incentives. And if they're going to be for trying to mature a new energy source, let's say hydrogen is coming on hard, okay? We're going to mature that. We pretty much matured solar and wind. They're now priced and basically the investments we made. But the only thing I said during that time, why don't you say, okay, here's the credits we have, and here's the incentives you have to use them in the areas that lost their traditional jobs, energy jobs, because this energy is going to replace this energy. Can't you at least use your money to drive those people, to give them an opportunity? You think they won't build you a windmill? You think they won't build you solar panels? They'll build you anything that you might desire, and they'll do it as well, if not better. But some people just say, oh, no, I'm going here, I'm going there. So this place is left as deserted and dilapidated. This is awful.
So totally agree with you. I think there's another frame to this issue that's changing a little bit, which is this an energy and climate debate or an economic debate? And one of the things I give credit to the Green New Deal about, and I think a lot of that was somewhat unserious, was they looked at the whole economy. And I guess what I'm wondering with you is when we think about the agreement, the deal that will make it durable, do we think just within the energy lane? Or is, multi-employer pensions and rural healthcare and broadband and worker training, is the ultimate idea here an energy deal or is it an economic deal?
It's all economics. People want to be able to take care of themselves. They want to be able to provide for their family. That's just human nature. That's who we are. You do the job you do, I do my job. That's the driving force. I mean, if you think it's, some people are just strictly aspirational, I guess, but most people come down to common sense, understand you got to pay for it. And someone's going to do that. So I look at this, everything we do has to say, can a person support themselves? Are you going to drive them out and say, okay, you can't live on the home place any longer. You can't live in the community you grew up in. There's no opportunities here because this mill closed, this mine closed, this power plant closed, boom, boom, boom. There's nothing coming in that area. There's no reason, and we're not driving it. So I think you're seeing Joe Biden build back better. We've had a lot of conversations on this. There's going to be a lot of attention to the areas of the country. And if you want to know why we have the political divide we have today, look at rural versus urban. It tells you everything. Look at the blue state, red states. It tells you everything. And that chasm's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And we better basically start filling it up and bringing it together and building more bridges. So I'm just looking at it from the standpoint, I know what's happened to my state, and I know what's happened to rural America, and I understand it. But the bottom line is a lot of Democrats sometimes don't understand it. And that's why we've lost the rural vote.
So I want to ask you a question about infrastructure, which does feel like it is the initial lane for this kind of economic renewal. And then I'm not the only one who has a lot of interest in asking questions. We have a very long list, and I'm going to start to turn to some of those. But back on infrastructure, political question and subject question. The political question is, does the approach to stimulus, which looks like it's going to be reconciliation unless you decide to change their minds, what does that do for the lane around infrastructure? Are we now in a 50-vote premise for the rest of the Biden administration? So I'm mentioning that dynamic. And then I mentioned what you think the key investments could be that would provide that kind of economic embrace for the rural parts of America.
Well, let me just tell you, I think we're in the position we're into right now, but we started wrong. And I think that Joe Biden's advisors have led him wrong to start out in strictly a partisan direction. We should have found something that we could have voted on bipartisan first, and then gone down this lane when we hit the road, if you would. We hit a roadblock, and they didn't do that. So, but that's fine. We're going to start this. I'm determined to make it bipartisan, because if we go off the rails and there's no bipartisan, you ain't coming back for 2 years. They'll want to do everything.
I heard you say, I'm okay with 1.9 trillion and I want it to be bipartisan. So parse it for me. Here's an unfair question.
It won't be bipartisan 1.9. I'm okay personally, but I'm realistic. But it could be somewhere a heck of a lot north than 600, and it'll be south of 1.9. So why won't they even talk about that? You mean it's 1.9 or nothing? Okay. I gave you my personal opinion. If you show me the need, I'll go to 1.9. Now you talk about infrastructure. Infrastructure should be the first thing we're doing, but we couldn't because we have a COVID pandemic. So we could have gotten, let me tell you what we could have done immediately, and gotten 90 to 100 votes. So, last year, 2013, even under Trump, we had 5 COVID bills. The total of 5 totaled to 5.7 trillion. 5.7 trillion, 5 bills, okay? Every one of them passed with 90 votes or more in the Senate. One of them passed voice vote, not even a vote, because we all agreed. Now we're starting out of the box, has to be, and they know my feelings. The president knows it, but I said, Mr. President, I want you to be successful. I'm going to help all I can. If this is a way down, I'm going to try to make it bipartisan. And I have a group of my colleagues that just want to go pedal to the metal and let's let it rip. And I'm going to tell you, if we be down, there's not going to be anything left for bipartisanship when it comes to infrastructure. And infrastructure is the one thing I've always said. That's like our military. It brings us all together because we all have a bad road, a bad bridge. We all have internet needs. We all have infrastructure needs, water, sewer, you name it. We can rebuild America together. We can do that. FDR did it, 32. You had Eisenhower did it in 56 with the interstate system. It can be done. But for some reason, we take on the most difficult subjects that have the most division, whether it be healthcare, and just beat ourselves to death, and there's nothing left. And it just doesn't. I says, you all have basically defined the word insanity. You have really defined it well in Congress. We'll keep trying the same thing over and let you know that we know the outcome, but by God, we're going to keep going down that lane.
Well, Senator, we see the debate like you did. I will note that the Bipartisan Policy Center put out about $1 trillion proposal with the assertion that if you could get a bipartisan agreement, the money would move a lot faster than if you go through the complexity.
Jason, we can get $1 trillion. We can get $1 trillion bipartisan deal tonight. Tonight, but that's not what my side of the Dow wants. My side wants 1.9.
Yeah. All right. I want to let some other folks get involved in the conversation. We have more questions than we've ever had in an event before. My staff has kind of sorted them. I'm going to probably combine them a little bit. But first, some of the folks from the media. Anthony Adrana from Politico. Actually, there's two questions about the clean energy standard. I'm going to put them together. One is from Anthony, is it feasible in pursuit of President Biden's push for 100% clean electricity by 2035? And I think the second question from Josh Siegel at the Washington Examiner is, would you support Democrats pursuing a clean energy standard as part of the infrastructure bill?
Well, so not unless we're committed to putting money. Pardon me?
Well, so the question is, is it a good idea? And
I heard the question. Okay, I heard the question, everything. You can't put that just a yes or no answer on that. That's not a yes. Are you going to commit to the money it takes to do the technology, that we can prove it under commercial load, that we can show you we can get to zero? That's all. But I'm not going to do it by elimination, I can tell you that, because the rest of the world is not going to follow us. If you want to clean up the world, then you better get the technology that does carbon capture, sequestration, utilization. You better find a way to solidify the carbon, this clearstream carbon you take off, because shoving it in the ground is not feasible. When President Obama said, go ahead and do it and build a coal plant, will break you, they knew it wasn't feasible. But with that, we have new technology coming on now, and we can make it feasible, and we should. And yes, we can get there if we're determined to invest.
Next question. Also, big picture, Jeremy Dillon, E&E News. There's been some Democratic talk about the Biden administration declaring a national emergency on climate change. Have you had that discussion? Would you be supportive of that declaration?
I'm anxious to have any discussion on climate. I started out yesterday with my first hearing on baseline. Let's just see if we all agree, rather than someone just saying declaring a war or an emergency. Give me your facts and figures you're dealing with and tell me how just the United States is going to make this happen. That's all. Just some common sense questions I have, and show me where you're going and how you intend to do it.
There are a number of questions around carbon removal, which was something I meant to raise. I think, West Virginia is the third most forested state in the country. You and the Morgantown lab has done a lot of work on direct air capture. The focus, well, I don't think trillion trees is probably it's alliterative, but that may be its best analytic attribute, the effort to focus on forest and farms. And so a couple of questions. Roger Ullman with Linden Trust wants to know how you view the role of direct air capture as part of the overall strategy, and what would you think should be done to push it forwards? And let me pull out Locke Loeb, who's with Weyerhaeuser, wants to know about how you view the role of working forests and this kind of broader net zero approach to success.
Well, I think the net zero by 2050 is very doable. I have said that many, many times, I think, but it's all in, I'm all for capture, clear air capture and clean air capture. And we have that. I forget how much money we put in that for this technology, basically, in the last bill we just passed. So we're committed to that, Jason, and we're going to be committed. We're all in. We're all in. We know that it can work. We know it's expensive and high cost, but basically we're putting it by areas that do have emissions and showing that's going to be the most effective way for us to do it. So, I'm totally committed to that. I'm committed to using everything in the cleanest fashion. If we don't have the technology now, let's have innovation that designs it. That's what we have the $35 billion for. And basically, then you should have, my only thing is a practical approach. When you have new technology, but if it's not proven, and when I say by proven, any new technology should be to scale under commercial use for 1 year to see if it does what you told me it's going to do, to see if it performs. If that happens, then basically, then anybody else in that sphere, would it be electric producing from coal or natural gas or gas combines, whatever it would be, then they have to get to that standard within a certain period of time, which is no different than what we did with SOX and NOx.
Right.
You know, so that's
No,
all
you're
I'm
making
saying. Just a
sure
reasonable approach.
once you see the product commercialized, then that changes the dynamic. And I think that's a really strong point, and it calls into question a couple of the. Go ahead,
You
sir.
you can't set your benchmarks or basically your quality of standard based on something hypothetical. You can't tell me this is what can be done because you have proven it in a test tube or in a lab and never done commercially, which is what a lot of people do. And they want to push this on. This is all proven technology. It might be proven, but has it been usable? Has it been done on a commercial scale?
All right, commercial scale, net zero by 50. There are a handful of questions that are basically saying this is all great, BPC, Senator Manchin, but like you're going to get to the targets by 2070, right? Like how are we doing this fast enough? And I guess I would ask you the question, do you see the government playing more of a brute force role in just building some of these first plants? Or do you think the market actually, absent any kind of broader carbon incentive, will get there fast enough without?
I think basically incentives, basically the market has always taken off where the consumer wanted it to. The consumer wants a cleaner environment. Okay, we have the financial institutions are not financing other types of environments or other types of products or supporting other types of people's situations they're in, whether it be extraction, whatever. The markets are changing, but we know the whole world. I mean, I don't know why. Do they think that the United States of America is going to suck all the air and recycle and put it back in the world? I don't know what they think. To me, I guess it's aspirational, but it doesn't work that way. I'm looking at it in the eyes of Dr. B-Roll. When he tells me, he says, here's our trouble spots. Here's where emissions are increasing. The United States has done pretty good. We flattened the curve, and we're flat on what our emissions have been. We have to do better than flat, though. Some are still going like this. We're not. But the bottom line is we have to show them that they can flatten and start going down too. And that's going to be technology.
Yeah. And I think, all I would say, kind of summarizing these questions, and we take this on as frankly some criticism a lot, is it's really hard to build those first of a kind plants. It's, Southern Company, we work with closely, spent, I don't know how many, 15 billion or so on a next generation nuclear. A lot of the efforts around carbon capture, future gen, the move from where we are with direct capture to scale. And I think the question is just, at the current pace, we're just not going to get there fast enough. Incentives help. But do you think Congress is ready to make a different kind of, probably, order of magnitude investment to speed these technologies along?
Well, let me just say that I've said this.
Alternative to the tax.
Yeah. First of all, what's the public willing to pay for a large infrastructure bill? What's going to be included in a large infrastructure bill? People talk about conventional roads and bridges, and they think, well, it's going to be highway taxes, it's going to be gasoline taxes. That's not going to do it. It just won't do it, what we need to do. And if you really want to think out of the box, think about this shit. We spent $5.7 trillion already, okay, on fighting a pandemic. $5.7 trillion. We're about to spend 1.5, whatever it might be, okay? I can tell. They want to go big. All they're talking about is go big. They don't care where they spend it, how they spend it, what kind of return they get. Just go big. They think that'll cure all the problems. I deal with this every day, and it makes no sense at all to me. But anyway, so you're talking 7 trillion. You're pushing 7 trillion, right? You're way over 7 trillion. Think about if we just took 4 trillion or 5 trillion over 10 years committed to infrastructure. Think about basic. I've had someone said, why don't you think about a VAT tax? I said, what? And they said a value-added tax. Put a national VAT tax on 0.5%, 0.75%. Find out whatever money you want and you think will do the job. Find out how you amortize it over 10 years. And that goes directly into an infrastructure bill. That's how you pay for it. Because there's not a person living in America that doesn't use infrastructure. You get your car, you get everything delivered to you, you get something done because someone's using some sort of infrastructure. Whether it's the planes, the air, the airports, the rails, the roads, whatever, you're getting it. So if we're going to do it, and you want climate could be right in there. That could be part of the infrastructure. Absolutely. Because you know what? We all benefit from it. But you got to be realistic. How many votes you think they'd get?
For a big infrastructure, for a VAT, I don't know. For a big infrastructure investment that we don't pay for, I think we get 75.
Oh no, we're good at voting for things we don't pay for. We have proven how to do it and do it expediently when we need to, especially if we give it away. Especially if we give it away. Now, the more we give away, the quicker we'll pass it.
Yeah. I think we have time for two more questions, one on infrastructure and one on FERC. So the other issue we deal with a lot on infrastructure in terms of scale and speed is that we have a democracy problem in addition to a technology problem. And I ask you this as a former governor as well as a senator, our permitting processes are slow. Not always, but often. Sometimes these have become kind of proxy debates for climate change. Hopefully we change that if we have a forward-looking climate policy. But I will share my personal view that if the federal government does not assert some kind of critical purpose, we do it with pipeline siting to say, these are critical direct air capture products. These are critical power lines. These are critical CCS. We're not going to get there. And it feels like the reluctance for the federal government to push like that, preemption of states, is a very tough argument. I know you see both those imperatives. How do you reconcile them?
The only thing I've ever said, and I keep using this, and it's a heck of a cliche, but follow the money. It's all you got to do. Things happen when you follow the money. Give you a perfect example. You know how hard it is to basically permit a 750 kV line or 500 kV line, new power line, or new pipeline. You see what, right? Let me tell you how you cure that. If the utility companies or the pipeline companies, everybody else, would share some of the revenue that's passed through that product that passes through that line, share it with the states and the counties they go through, you cure that problem like that. It cures it. Nobody wants to share. They just said, "Oh, you have to have it, so you got to let us do it." Oh, we need eminent domain. Oh yeah, let's go ahead and do it because it's for the public good. If it's for the public good, then share a little bit of your revenue with them, and I guarantee you, it'll save you a lot on the back end.
So I have a last question, then I'll ask you to just offer a closing thought or two. This comes from Ralph.
Article. Somebody's writing this article is going to be wild.
That's why we do this together. You make news. From Ralph Cavanna with the Natural Resources Defense Council. And it starts out saying, congratulations on your leadership in returning the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to full bipartisan strength with two outstanding new commissioners, Allison Clements and Mark Christie. What do you see as the role for FERC going forward in this climate debate?
I think FERC's going to they're going to get their footing. I think they are. I really do. I mean, Allison was just an unbelievable, very, very intelligent person who has the experience level that we needed. There were people in the past administration that kind of was a little bit concerned. I think they were concerned because she was so accomplished. I think that was the concern. But we got over that. We persevered. She never gave up. She never walked away. I said, "Allison, please, you hang in there. You're the right person for this job." And on the other side, good people. We're going to get a really good working FERC that's going to basically look at the problems, the challenges we have, the responsibilities they have. Working with the Department of Energy, we can make some good things happen. We really can. We can move things along. And like I said, there's so much, energy efficiency, that's the low-hanging fruit. Think about how much energy we lose by old delivery systems, whether it's across the power lines, whether it's in the pipelines that aren't secure, all the things. All these things have to be upgraded. And we've got to be on top. We have to have you have to have a regulation board that doesn't go in with a cease and desist, but gives you a sensitive time to get something accomplished and corrected. Works with you as a partner, not as an adversary. Those are all people don't expect to get that type of service from government. I would like to think they would get it and they could get it and they should. And if we work together, we can make that happen. I think we got good people in the right place now. Maybe we can make that happen.
So Senator, to close this down, one of the things that we always appreciate when meeting with you is the meeting usually ends with you saying, "Let me know how I can help." And you actually mean it. So there's a couple thousand people listening in here right now. I think all of them care about coming up with a solution to these problems. Let us know how we can help. What do you think that the general civil society should be bringing to this debate?
Well, basically, they should hold us all accountable. They should hold us accountable. You really should. We need to hear from you. Senators and congresspeople need to hear that if we're not investing your money, it's your tax dollars. If we're not investing it wisely, if we're just spending it because it makes us look good politically, speak out. That's not who we're about. If you want us to work in a bipartisan way, you want us to try to find a compromise, speak out about it. And then elect people that want that type of government. If you just want someone coming from the extremes, then what you'll get is extreme government on either side. So the only thing I can tell you is on the Energy Committee, I'm chairman now, and I have a staff of 18 to 20 people. And they're extremely competent, and they're extremely excellent in their job. We need your help. It's not enough of us to do what we need. So we need your expertise, whatever research you've done, whatever you can share with us, helps us do our job better. And anything I've said, if you can't change your mind, you can't change anything. So if I'm not set in any mindset, if people are trying to pigeonhole me or silo me and say, oh, that's Joe Manchin, he's there, they are absolutely so wrong. You show me the facts. You show me how to improve things. And I'll tell you one thing, you've got a supporter. And I live by that. If you can't change your mind, you can't change anything. I have had wrong information. I've had an opinion about something. I have voted for something and had to change because I was wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. You grow and we learn every day. So be willing to do that. So don't be afraid to reach out to us, Jason, and all of your listeners and all your participants. Let us know if there's something. On infrastructure, what should be included? Should it be done in another grand bill? Should it be basically paid for or not paid for? Only thing I do know that's popular, people want checks. They want people to send them something and don't have to pay it back. So I know that would be very popular. Try to be a little more practical that if we did have to pay it back, how would we pay it back and not be a burden on somebody or a hardship? But it should be done because the end result, you'll get more out of it than what you've put into it. And my grandfather will leave you with this. He said, Joe, guess what? Life is like a bank. You can't take any more out than you put into it. So what are we in the United States willing to invest in a better future, a brighter technology future, a brighter energy future, and much cleaner climate? We got to look at all that.
Well, Senator, the substance and the spirit that you bring to these discussions, I think, is incredibly meaningful to us. And now it's incredibly meaningful to everybody. I know your colleagues are genuflecting and calling you Your Highness. I would imagine that your staff is going to have no lack of input, people trying to inform you in ways that advance what we all believe are the good answers. But really appreciate you taking some time.
If I could say one more thing, Jason, if I could say one more thing on that. People talk about this power. All the power, okay? I've been around long enough, and I've watched people who had power that abused it and ruined them. I've watched people that sought power and destroyed themselves. And I've seen people in places of opportunity that can make really changes that are meaningful. Mm-hmm. I would hope to be in that latter category, that whatever position I'm in, and the only reason I'm in this position in a hot seat right now, because of my 10 years of voting in the Senate, have been very moderate centrist. All of a sudden, if I'm a Johnny-come-lately and I've always been over here, but now I jump to here, I wouldn't be taking that serious. But they know I tell people, I am fiscally responsible and socially compassionate. I want to make sure that I didn't leave anybody behind. And I want to make sure also that I didn't put a burden on you for something that I want. It's a burden that I'm willing to pay for too. Does that make sense?
It is a vision of leadership and service that we hope others will follow. So, Senator, again, we're here for you. We know you're here for us, and we appreciate you.
Thank you all. I appreciate you. Thank you for the bipartisanship that you continue to espouse and basically preach and practice.
Everyone have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you all.